The Prairie Traveler, a handbook for overland expeditions. Chapter 1. Routes to California and Oregon. Emigrants or others desiring to make the overland journey to the Pacific should bear in mind that there are several different routes which may be traveled with wagons, each having its advocates in persons directly or indirectly interested in attracting the tide of emigration and travel over them. Information concerning these routes coming from strangers living or owning property near them, from agents of steamboats or railways, or from other persons connected with transportation companies, should be received with great caution, and never without corroborating evidence from disinterested sources. There is no doubt that each one of these roads has its advantages and disadvantages, but a judicious selection must depend chiefly upon the following considerations, namely, the locality from whence the individual is to take his departure, the season of the year when he desires to commence his journey, the character of his means of transportation, and the point upon the Pacific coast that he wishes to reach. Persons living in the northeastern states can, with about equal facility and dispatch, reach the eastern terminus of any one of the routes they may select by means of public transport. And, as animals are much cheaper upon the frontier than in the eastern states, they should purchase their teams at or near the point where the overland journey is to commence. Those living in the northwestern states, having their own teams, and wishing to go to any point north of San Francisco, will of course make choice of the route which takes its departure from the Missouri River. Those who live in the middle western states, having their own means of transportation and going to any point upon the Pacific coast, should take one of the middle routes. Others, who reside in the extreme southwest and whose destination is south of San Francisco, should travel the southern road running through Texas, which is the only one practicable for comfortable winter travel. The grass upon a great portion of this route is green during the entire winter, and snow seldom covers it. This road leaves the Gulf Coast at Powderhorn, on Matagorda Bay, which point is difficult of access by land from the north, but may be reached by steamers from New Orleans 5 times a week. There are stores at Powderhorn and Indianola where the traveler can obtain most of the articles necessary for his journey, but it is recommended to supply himself before leaving New Orleans with everything he requires, with the exception of animals, which he will find cheaper in Texas. This road has received a large amount of travel since 1849, is well tracked and defined, and, excepting about 20 miles of hog wallow prairie near Powderhorn, it is an excellent road for carriages and wagons. It passes through a settled country for 250 miles, and within this section supplies can be had at reasonable rates. At Victoria and San Antonio, many fine stores will be found, well supplied with large stocks of goods, embracing all the articles the traveler will require. The next route to the north is that over which the semi-weekly mail to California passes, and which, for a great portion of the way to New Mexico, was traveled and recommended in 1849. This road leaves the Arkansas River at Fort Smith, to which point steamers run during the seasons of high water in the winter and spring. Supplies of all descriptions necessary for the overland journey may be procured at Fort Smith, or at Van Buren on the opposite side of the Arkansas. Horses and cattle are cheap here. The road, on leaving Fort Smith, passes through the Choctaw and Chickasaw country for 180 miles, then crosses Red River by ferryboat at Preston, and runs through the border settlements of northern Texas for 150 miles, within which distances supplies may be procured at moderate prices. This road is accessible to persons desiring to make the entire journey with their own transportation from Tennessee or Mississippi. It may also be reached by taking steamers up Red River to Shreveport or Jefferson. This road also unites with the San Antonio Road at El Paso, and from that point they pass together over the mountains to Fort Yuma and to San Francisco in California. Another road leaves Fort Smith and runs up the south side of the Canadian River to Santa Fe and Albuquerque in New Mexico. This road was discovered, explored, located, and marked out from Fort Smith, Arkansas to Santa Fe, New Mexico. Near Albuquerque, it unites with other roads to California. The Cherokee Trail, also starting from Fort Smith, crosses Grand River at Fort Gibson and runs a little north of west to the Verdigris River. Thence up the valley of this stream on the north side for 80 miles, when it crosses the river and, taking a northwest course, strikes the Arkansas River near Old Fort Man on the Santa Fe Trace. Thence it passes near the base of Pikes Peak and follows down Cherry Creek from its source to its confluence with the South Platte, and from thence over the mountains into Utah and on to California via Fort Bridger and Salt Lake City. For persons who desire to go from the southern states to the gold diggings in the vicinity of Cherry Creek, this route is shorter by some 300 miles than that from Fort Smith via Fort Leavenworth. It is said to be an excellent road and well supplied with the requisites for encamping. It has been traveled by large parties of California emigrants for several years and is well tracked and defined. Grass upon all the roads leaving Fort Smith is sufficiently advanced to afford sustenance to animals by the 1st of April, and from this time until winter sets in, it is abundant. The next route on the north leaves the Missouri River at Westport, Leavenworth City, Atchison, or from other towns above, between either of which points and St. Louis steamers ply during the entire summer season. The necessary outfit of supplies can always be procured at any of the starting points on the Missouri River at moderate rates. This is the great emigrant route from Missouri to California and Oregon, over which so many thousands have traveled within the past few years. The track is broad, well-worn, and cannot be mistaken. It has received the major part of the Mormon emigration and was traversed by the Army in its march to Utah in 1857. At the point where this road crosses the South Platte River, Lieutenant Bryan's Road branches off to the left, leading through Bridger's Pass, and thence to Fort Bridger. The Fort Kearny route to the gold region near Pikes Peak also leaves the Emigrant Road at this place and runs up the South Platte. From Fort Bridger, there are two roads that may be traveled with wagons in the direction of California, one passing Salt Lake City and the other running down Bear River to Soda Springs, intersecting the Salt Lake City Road at the City of Rocks. Near Soda Springs, the Oregon Road turns to the right, passing Fort Hall, and thence down Snake River to Fort Walla Walla. Unless travelers have business in Salt Lake Valley, the Bear River route is much shorter and better in every respect. The road, on leaving the Missouri River, passes for 150 miles through a settled country where grain can be purchased. Organization of companies. Once the route is selected, emigrants should unite into organized companies before commencing the journey. The company should be large enough to furnish an efficient guard for the protection of animals at night and to resist any attack that may be made by Indians. A company of about 50 or 60 persons is considered a proper number for these purposes. Too large a company is apt to create confusion and delay in marching and encamping. The first business after organizing is to elect a captain, in whose judgment and integrity the company reposes confidence. He should be a man of good sense, energy, and decision of character, and if possible, have had some experience upon the plains. The captain directs the order of march, selects the camping places, and has general control over the movements of the company. It is important that all members of the company should sign articles of agreement, binding themselves to submit to the orders of the captain, and to aid and support him in the discharge of his duties. A common fund should be raised for the purchase of extra animals to replace such as may be lost or worn out upon the journey. Each member should also bind himself to assist in carrying the property of anyone whose wagon or team may fail. This mutual obligation makes every man interested in protecting the property of others, as well as his own. The company should have the power to punish anyone who refuses to obey the orders of the captain, or who otherwise misconducts himself. Prairie life is a mixture of pleasure and privation. The traveler is rewarded by the ever-changing scenery, the pure atmosphere, and the excitement of wildlife, but he must expect to encounter hardships and fatigue. All members of the company should be prepared to perform their share of labor cheerfully, and to submit to the necessary restraints. Long journeys are apt to try the tempers of men, and slight causes often produce irritation and discontent. Those who exercise forbearance and endeavor to promote harmony contribute much to the comfort and success of the expedition. An organized company has many advantages over independent parties. The guard duty is light when divided among many, the animals are well herded and guarded, and assistance is always at hand in case of accident or attack. Without organization, even small parties are liable to fall into confusion, and serious difficulties often arise in deciding questions of marching and camping. A well-regulated company moves with order and harmony, and reaches its destination with far less suffering and loss than disorganized bands. Elections of captains. The election of a captain is a matter of great importance, and should be made with care. The safety and success of the company depend in a great measure upon the qualifications of the leader. He should be a man of sound judgment, firmness, and decision, and capable of commanding respect and obedience. Experience upon the plains is highly desirable, but good natural sense and a disposition to act for the general good are essential. The captain's duties are arduous and responsible. He must decide upon the hours of marching and halting, select the camping places, assign the guards, and direct all the movements of the company. In cases of danger from Indians or other causes, his promptness and courage may save the whole party. He should be impartial in his decisions, and ready to listen to the advice of experienced members, but firm in carrying out what he believes to be right. Before the election, the company should fully discuss the qualifications of candidates. Popularity alone should not decide the choice. A weak or inefficient captain will cause dissatisfaction and trouble throughout the journey. The election should take place as soon as the company is organized, so that the leader may assume his duties at once. After election, the captain should call the company together and read the Articles of Agreement, explaining the obligations each member has assumed. He should impress upon them the necessity of obedience and harmony. A good captain studies the comfort and welfare of his men, and at the same time maintains the discipline necessary for the success of the expedition. Many companies have suffered severely from bad leadership. The choice of a captain is therefore one of the most important steps in the preparation for the journey. Wagons and teams. The wagon should be of the best quality, made of well-seasoned timber, and constructed with particular reference to the purposes for which it is intended. The bed should be made of strong sheet iron or stout canvas, and the running gear should be light yet durable. The axles should be of iron, and the wheels should have wide tires to prevent sinking in sand or mud. A good wagon will carry from 2,500 to 3,000 pounds. The cover should be of strong Osnaburg or cotton duck, well stretched over bows, and made to shed water. It is well to have a supply of extra spokes, felloes, and other spare parts. The team may consist of mules or oxen. Mules travel faster, but oxen are more steady and endure hardships better. For heavy loads and long journeys, oxen are generally preferred. 6 or 8 oxen or 4 or 6 mules are required for each wagon. The harness or yokes should be strong and well fitted. It is important to have extra harness and yokes. The loading of the wagon requires care. Heavy articles should be placed at the bottom, and the weight distributed evenly. The load should not be too high, as it makes the wagon top-heavy. Provisions and baggage should be packed securely so that they will not shift. A waterproof sheet should be placed over the load under the cover. Each wagon should carry a tool chest with axes, saws, augers, hammers, nails, and other necessary tools. A bucket of tar or grease for the axles is indispensable. With properly constructed wagons and teams, and careful loading, the journey may be performed with comparative ease and safety. Relative merits of mules and oxen. Mules and oxen each have their advocates among prairie travelers. Mules travel more rapidly than oxen and are better for making forced marches. They endure heat better and require less water. They are more active and intelligent and easier to manage in some respects. On the other hand, they are more expensive to purchase, more liable to stampede, and more difficult to herd at night. They require better forage and are more easily injured by hard usage. Oxen are slower, but they draw heavier loads and endure fatigue and hardships better on long journeys. They subsist on coarser grass and keep in better condition where forage is scarce. They are less liable to stampede and can be herded more easily. Their feet are more tender, however, and they are slower in traveling. For families and for those who have heavy loads, oxen are generally preferred. For rapid travel with light loads, mules are better. Many experienced travelers use both, employing oxen for the heavy wagons and mules for lighter vehicles or for riding. The choice depends much upon the nature of the journey and the experience of the travelers. With proper care, either will perform the journey successfully. The main point is to have animals well broken and in good condition when starting, and to treat them kindly and carefully throughout the march. Stores and provisions. The amount and kind of provisions must be regulated by the length of the journey and the number of persons. For each adult, about 3 pounds of breadstuff per day should be allowed. Bacon is the best meat, as it keeps well and is nutritious. Coffee, sugar, and salt are indispensable. Rice, beans, and peas are useful. Desiccated vegetables and fruits are excellent to prevent scurvy. A small quantity of vinegar is useful. The provisions should be packed in strong sacks or barrels. Flour and meal keep best in sacks. Bacon should be packed in boxes or barrels. It is well to have a variety of articles, as a change of diet is important. Hunters can supply fresh meat in many places, but reliance should not be placed upon game alone. A small quantity of pemmican or other concentrated food is useful in case of emergency. Each person should have a supply of antiscorbutics. The total amount of provisions for a journey of 4 or 5 months should be calculated with a liberal margin for delays. It is better to have too much than too little. All provisions should be examined and tested before starting. Nothing should be taken that is likely to spoil. With proper attention to this department, the traveler will avoid much suffering and perhaps save the lives of his party. How packed? The mode of packing the stores and provisions is of great importance. Heavy articles should be placed at the bottom of the wagon and lighter ones on top. The load should be so arranged that it will not shift. Barrels and boxes should be well secured. Sacks of flour and meal should be placed where they will not get wet. A division should be made in the loading so that articles in daily use can be reached without unloading the whole wagon. Cooking utensils should be packed together and kept accessible. Clothing and bedding should be kept dry. Ammunition and arms must be packed securely, yet ready for immediate use. Tools and repair materials should be conveniently placed. Each morning after loading, the wagon should be examined to see that everything is in its place and well secured. At night, when unloading, care should be taken to protect perishable articles from dampness. With proper packing, much time and labor will be saved, and the goods will reach their destination in good condition. Poor packing causes many delays and losses upon the road. Experience soon teaches the best method, but it is well to profit by the experience of others. A systematic arrangement contributes greatly to the comfort and success of the expedition. Desiccated and canned vegetables. Desiccated or dried vegetables are almost equal to the fresh, and are put up in such a compact and portable form as easily to be transported over the plains. They have been extensively used in the Crimean War and by our own army in Utah, and have been very generally approved. They are prepared by cutting fresh vegetables into thin slices and subjecting them to a powerful press, which removes the juice and leaves a solid cake. When required for use, a small piece of this cake is placed in water and boiled, and it swells to its original bulk and nearly recovers its natural flavor. They are very nutritious and keep well for a long time. Canned vegetables and fruits are also excellent for the journey, but they are heavier and more bulky than the desiccated. A small supply of these should be taken, especially tomatoes, which are particularly useful as antiscorbutics. Peas, beans, and other vegetables in cans add variety to the diet and are always acceptable. The desiccated vegetables can be obtained at the stores in the eastern cities and are sold at reasonable prices. They form a very important article in the list of supplies for a long journey, as fresh vegetables cannot be procured after leaving the settlements, and scurvy is one of the most dangerous diseases to which prairie travelers are exposed. A liberal supply of these preparations will do much toward preserving the health of the company. Pemmican, the most portable and simple preparation of subsistence that I know of, and which is used extensively by the Mexicans and Indians, is called pemmican. It is made by cutting the lean parts of the meat into thin slices, drying them in the sun or by a fire until they become brittle, then pounding them into a powder between two stones. This powder is mixed with an equal quantity of melted tallow, and when cool is put into bags made of the hide of the animal. It keeps for a great length of time, and a small quantity contains a large amount of nutriment. It is not very palatable to those who are unaccustomed to it, but it is highly nutritious and very convenient for long journeys. The Indians and voyagers of the north use it almost exclusively when traveling. It can be eaten either raw or cooked, and when boiled with a little flour, it makes a very palatable soup. A man may subsist for a long time upon a very small allowance of pemmican. It is particularly valuable in cases where game is scarce, or when the party is compelled to make forced marches. Travelers should provide themselves with a supply of this article before leaving the settlements, or they can prepare it upon the plains whenever they have an abundance of meat. It forms one of the best resources against starvation. Antiscorbutics, cold flour. I would advise all persons who travel for any considerable time through a country where they can procure no vegetables to carry with them some antiscorbutics, and if they cannot transport desiccated or canned vegetables, citric acid answers a good purpose and is very portable. Wild onions are excellent as antiscorbutics, also wild grapes and greens. An infusion of hemlock leaves is also said to be an antidote to scurvy. The most portable and simple preparation of subsistence that I know of is called cold flour. It is made by parching corn until it is brown, then grinding it into a fine powder. A small quantity of this mixed with water or milk makes a very nutritious and palatable food. It is used extensively by the Indians and Mexicans, and is highly recommended for prairie travelers. A tablespoonful mixed with a pint of water will sustain a man for a day. It is light, compact, and will keep for a long time. Sugar or salt may be added to improve the flavor. This preparation, with a small supply of pemmican and desiccated vegetables, will enable the traveler to subsist for a considerable time when other provisions fail. It is well to have a supply of these articles always on hand in case of emergency. Substitutes in case of necessity. When the regular supplies of the company become exhausted, it is often necessary to resort to substitutes which the country affords. The flesh of the buffalo, deer, antelope, and other game furnishes an excellent substitute for bacon. The tongues of the buffalo are particularly good when cured and smoked. Wild turkeys, geese, ducks, and other birds are found in many places and afford a change of diet. Fish can be caught in some of the streams. The traveler should always be provided with hooks and lines. When game is scarce, the party may sometimes kill a poor ox or mule and use the meat. In cases of extreme necessity, the hides of animals can be eaten after being thoroughly boiled. The Indians often subsist for a long time upon the inner bark of the cottonwood tree. This is nutritious and not unpalatable. The roots of several plants, such as the pomme blanche, are used by the Indians as food. The traveler should make himself acquainted with the different articles which the country produces that may be used in case of necessity. It is always well to have some knowledge of the wild plants and animals which may be turned to account for subsistence. With proper management and a little ingenuity, a party may often sustain itself for a long time in a country where at first sight it would seem impossible to procure food. Amount of supplies. The amount of supplies required depends upon the length of the journey and the number of persons in the company. For a trip of 4 or 5 months, each adult should be provided with about 200 pounds of flour, 100 pounds of bacon, 20 pounds of sugar, 10 pounds of coffee, and a small quantity of salt, pepper, and other condiments. This, with what can be obtained by hunting, will be sufficient. For each person, about 3 pounds of breadstuff per day should be allowed. It is better to have too much than too little, as delays often occur. The supply should be divided among the wagons so that if one is lost, the whole stock is not destroyed. A reserve should always be kept for emergencies. The total weight of provisions for a company should be carefully calculated, and the wagons loaded accordingly. Overloading at the start is a great error, as it breaks down the teams. It is better to start with a moderate load and replenish at points where supplies can be obtained. With proper economy, the amounts I have mentioned will be ample for the journey. The health and strength of the party depend greatly upon the quantity and quality of their food, and no pains should be spared to provide a sufficient supply of wholesome provisions. Clothing. Each person should be provided with 2 woolen shirts, 2 pairs of woolen drawers, 2 pairs of stout woolen pants, 1 woolen coat, 1 overcoat, 2 pairs of stout shoes, 2 pairs of socks, 1 hat, and 1 pair of boots. The clothing should be made large and loose, so as to allow free circulation of the air. Tight clothing is very injurious in a hot climate. Flannel is the best material for shirts and drawers, as it absorbs the perspiration and prevents taking cold. The outer garments should be of strong woolen cloth. A broad-brimmed hat is better than a cap, as it protects the face from the sun. Each man should have a good blanket and a buffalo robe or comforter for bedding. India rubber blankets or ponchos are very useful in rainy weather. The clothing should be changed as often as possible, and the greatest attention paid to personal cleanliness. Vermin are a great annoyance upon the plains, and can only be avoided by frequent changes and washings. The traveler will find it very comfortable to have a complete change of clothing put up in a small bundle, so that he can shift whenever he desires. With a proper supply of clothing, the health and comfort of the party will be greatly promoted. Camp equipage. Arms. The camp equipage should consist of a good tent for each mess, a camp kettle, a frying pan, a coffee pot, a bake kettle or Dutch oven, tin plates, cups, spoons, and knives and forks. The tent should be of strong material and large enough to accommodate the mess comfortably. The Sibley tent is one of the best for prairie traveling. Each wagon should have a large tarpaulin to cover the load and to be used as a tent when necessary. A good supply of ropes, pins, and mallets should be taken. For arms, each man should have a rifle or shotgun, a revolver, and a knife. The rifle should be of a caliber suitable for killing buffalo and other large game. A Colt's revolver is the best for the plains. Ammunition in sufficient quantity should be provided and kept dry. A small supply of powder and lead for running bullets is useful. The arms should be kept in good order and always ready for use. With proper camp equipage and arms, the traveler will be prepared for all the contingencies of the journey and will travel with comfort and security. The tent, cooking utensils, and bedding should be packed so as to be easily accessible at night. A systematic arrangement of the camp equipage contributes greatly to the comfort of the party.